In the 6th episode of Star Trek Picard, Jean-Luc Picard and the crew of the La Sirena reach the Borg artifact, and Soji finally begins to learn the truth about who and what she is. From Voyager nods to visuals pulled straight from Deep Space Nine, here are all the Easter eggs and references in the Impossible Box. Early on in the Impossible Box, as the La Sirena nears the former Borg cube known as the Artifact, Picard instructs a computer in his study to search for the terms the Artifact, Treaty, and the Borg. When he sits down to reluctantly scroll through the results, several of the images on which Picard chooses to linger are easily identifiable. There's the ex-Borg Hugh, both when he first came aboard the Enterprise on the Next Generation, and then again as he appears in Picard. Several shots of ex-Borg in the midst of the reclamation procedures, and of course Picard is Locutus of Borg. But there are several other quick glimpses of search results you may not have recognized. The first was a shot of a Federation ship firing on a Borg cube and seemingly doing some damage, which could have been from the battle at the opening of Star Trek First Contact. The next image is of the Romulan Continuing Committee, which is taken straight from the Deep Space Nine episode in which a character becomes entangled in a Tal Shiar plot. There is also a brief image of the Paris skyline in the year 2372, which was taken from the Deep Space Nine episode To the Death. In that episode, the DS9 crew has to destroy an Iconian gateway, a technological portal which could instantly transport people over enormous distances, which is very similar to the device Picard and Soji used to escape the Romulans at the end of the Impossible Box. As the La Sirena nears the Borg artifact, Raffi turns on the charm to contact her old friend in Starfleet contact Emmy, requesting diplomatic credentials for Picard. But Emmy refuses at first, saying that the Romulans are in a 250-year bad mood. If you're wondering what happened to the Romulans 2.5 centuries ago to make them so cranky, well, that's about the time they first came in contact with humans in 2152. Just a few years later, in 2156, the Earth-Romulan War began, which only lasted for 4 years but is still having repercussions over 200 years into the future. The end of the war was marked by the establishment of the Romulan Neutral Zone in 2160 and led directly to the formation of the United Federation of Planets in 2161. Given the Romulans' long-running tension with the Federation, it's no wonder that they're still in a bad mood. When Hugh mentions in the Impossible Box that the former Borg on the artifact refer to themselves as XBs, Picard wonders out loud at the reason for renaming themselves. Hugh explains.
A new name can be the first step to a new identity. I learned that on the Enterprise, all those years ago.
The lesson Hugh is referring to took place in the episode where he first appeared on The Next Generation, titled I, Borg. At first, Hugh doesn't see himself as an individual, but as a member of the collective, referring to himself only as we and telling the crew that he is third of 5. However, after Geordi and Beverly explain the purpose of names to him, he decides he wants one for himself.
Do I have a name?
Do you want one?
A name.
Adopting his own name marks the beginning of Hugh's ability to think of himself in terms of I, not we, and ultimately leads to his lifelong mission to free and rehabilitate other Borg. In part, Hugh's job as the executive director of the Borg Reclamation Project involves him overseeing the rehabilitation efforts of the traumatized ex-Borg who are trying to recuperate from their assimilation. However, as he shares with Picard, even after the XBs have gone through reclamation, they still aren't accepted by free society. Hugh says that the XBs remain the most hated people in the galaxy, just as helpless and enslaved as before, but that now their queen is a Romulan. This is a clear nod to the Borg Queen that Picard himself encountered in Star Trek First Contact. The Queen was the one who directed the Borg's actions, and she revealed in First Contact that it was her idea to assimilate Picard as Locutus. Rather than have just another nameless Borg drone, the Queen had hoped Picard would serve as her counterpart. However, Picard's resistance proved not to be futile after all, forcing the Queen to abandon her plan. When Picard finds Soji alive on the artifact, it's great news for the two of them, but not so good for Raffi, who had placed a bet with Rios that Picard's target would already be dead.
You owe me 2 strips of latinum. Twin's still alive.
While latinum has popped up here and there across multiple Star Trek shows, it was most frequently mentioned in Deep Space Nine as the preferred currency of the Ferengi Alliance, and specifically of Quark, the Ferengi bartender on the space station. Latinum is often referenced in the Ferengi rules of acquisition, around which Ferengi society is structured.
Nature decays, but latinum lasts forever.
Rule of acquisition number 102.
Good lad.
When Picard and Hugh enter Soji's quarters, a voice can be heard in the background announcing that sectors 58 through 521 are temporarily closed due to detected chronometric activity. In Star Trek First Contact, the controlled emission of chronometric particles is what allowed the Borg to travel back in time and assimilate Earth, which forced the Enterprise crew to chase after them and re-establish the original timeline. But in addition to the chronometric activity, the specific sectors that are mentioned may also have a hidden meaning. In the 5th season of Star Trek The Next Generation, Episode 8 and Episode 21 were both directed by Cliff Bole. While neither of these episodes feels particularly relevant to the Impossible Box, the same cannot be said of the 2 other Bole-directed episodes of The Next Generation, The Best of Both Worlds Parts 1 and 2. Those, of course, are the episodes in which Picard is assimilated by the Borg and becomes Locutus, an event which was heavily referenced in the Impossible Box. When Picard, Soji, Hugh, and Elnor find themselves trapped in the former Borg Queen's chamber, Hugh is able to use his collective memories of the area to grant them access to the Queen's failsafe escape route. It turns out the Queen has a spatial trajector, an instant teleportation device with a wide range, which Hugh says was built from technology the Borg acquired after assimilating Sikarians. Star Trek fans have actually seen a spatial trajector once before, on the Star Trek Voyager first season episode Prime Factors. In the episode, Captain Janeway and her crew encounter the Sikarians, whose teleportation technology has the potential to cut their decades-long journey home in half.
I've just been to Alastria and back. Alastria is 40,000 light years away.
However, the Sikarians are reluctant to share their technology due to their own version of the Prime Directive, which prohibits them from interfering in the development of less advanced cultures. Sadly, it seems that the technology the Sikarians were so protective of in Voyager has since been taken out of their hands by force. Although Picard was certainly grateful for the escape, he'd probably be the first to agree that the cost was too high. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about Star Trek are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.